Hey everybody, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to teach you guys how to write math rock riffs using slides. So slides are an incredibly vital technique in this style, and you'll hear them used in the music of basically every single band. Meaning in this video, I'm going to show you guys a few concepts and ideas based around slides with the hope that you can take these and apply them to your own playing and writing. Without further ado then, let's get started. Okay, for those who don't know what a slide is a simple legato technique where we take a note, bring it out, and we move to a different fret and pitch using the same finger that was initially holding the note. And if we do that, we get that sound. So in what follows, all of the techniques that I'll talk about today will do this slide technique in some form. And for our first idea, we're going to look at slides in the context of arpeggios, specifically using slides to slide into arpeggios or elaborate and embellish on an arpeggiated idea. So as an example of this, one thing that I like to use slides for is to flow from one idea into the arpeggio of a chord. For example, we could try something like this. So what's happening here is I'm starting with this little legato idea in the left hand, and I end on this tone here, and I use this tone and this finger to slide up into what is essentially the chord tone of an arpeggio. So the main trick here is to find a chord shape that actually fits the finger that you use to make the slide. In other words, in this case here, I found a chord shape that I could build around the finger that actually did the sliding. So once again, see how I flow into this chord shape, where I take this finger, slide, and then build a chord around it. And stylistically, you're not just limited to sliding up, like I did in the first example, you are actually able to slide down as well. So maybe you could try something like this. In this idea here, I'm starting with an arpeggio, and then I stop on the highest tone here, though you can stop on any tone that you want. I stop on this tone here, and I slide from the 9th fret down to the 7th, and then I continue on playing a new idea. So basically the slide just connects a position shift from this position here to this position, helping me to move between octaves and also kind of glue these two ideas together with like a simple little brush stroke. And beyond this idea, another thing that you guys can try with slides and connecting chords is to start with a couple chord shapes and just try and use slides to connect them together. For example, you could try something like this. So I like to do this here as it's a nice kind of exercise just to see how slides sound when they're connecting chords, and it's a really nice way to just get some nice flow between your arpeggiated chord sounds so that everything is nicely glued together and there's a limited amount of space between all of the notes. So yeah, give slides in relation to arpeggios a go, as it's one of my favorite techniques and it's a great way to make things sound really flowy. All right, so another thing that we can do is to use slides to elaborate on a certain tone or chord. For example, what we're going to do is take a pitch here, slide up to a new pitch, and then slide back to that original pitch. And if we put it all together, we'll have something that sounds like this. So the trick here with this kind of thing is to find the right tone to elaborate on. So when you're thinking about which tones you want to elaborate, you should think about the key points in your line and its melody and rhythm. So for example, one of the things that I like to do with elaborating on chords is to highlight the extensions or the guide tones. So for example, if I was elaborating on, say, this D minor 7 chord, maybe what I would do is I would try to elaborate on the 7th, since that's a really particularly strong chord in the sound. Or let's say I had a major 7 sus2 sound that's like this here. Maybe something I would try would be to elaborate on the 7th here, sliding up from the 7 to the 9 and then back. So yeah, pay attention to the particular points that you want to elaborate, as they'll help to give a certain strong impact in your music. Okay, up next is a very simple but stylistically important trick. We're going to try sliding into a pull-off, which sounds like this. So this is one that you should definitely learn, as it's used in a lot of Midwest emo and like really noodly music. And for me, I find that this technique is best suited in the context of adding texture to a line. So to me, I think that there's a certain kind of nice timbre to doing this kind of slide and pull off thing. And for me, it's really useful for adding some variation just to the textures of your riffs. So I wouldn't try writing a line that is completely based on slides into pull-offs, but if you want to add a little bit of something extra, like a little more spice, then I would throw in a slide into a pull-off in a specific kind of important spot just to get a certain sound. And I also find that using slides with pull-offs can be great for cadencing a line. So when you do the pull-off, I find that that adds actually a lot of emphasis to the second note that's happening, or the note that's getting pulled off. So when you're writing a line, maybe try and write a phrase where you move through, I guess, a bunch of different notes and chords, but eventually end on this pull-off here. That can, I think, segue nicely into some new material. And finally, with regards to texture, these slides are cool because they create some contrast. So one thing that I hear a lot in kind of math rock and emo stuff is the idea of going from a chord shot into a slide. And that sounds cool because you have two very different textures happening. You have a chunk, and then you have this kind of more flowy, but kind of jagged sound. So that would sound something like this. So that's kind of cool. It's very rhythmic, percussive, but also mixed in with a bit of legato. So yeah, pull-offs with slides, learn them, experiment with them, try them as cadences to your line, and think about them as a textural device. All right, for our last idea today, I want to talk about slides in the context of double stops and triple stops. So a double stop is simply when we play a 2-note grouping at once, and a triple stop is when we play a 3-note grouping at once. And so the reason we want to try slides in the context of double and triple stops is for texture. So for me, I find that doing slides and pull-offs and stuff like that on its own is pretty good, but sometimes it's not quite enough for the texture that I want in my lines. So sometimes to add a little more thickness and color, I'll try using a double stop instead, as there's a little bit more of a hard-hitting nature to them. So not really a whole ton more to say on that. Yeah, give the double and triple stops a go, just because they have a more thick and unique texture to them. Okay, so now that we've moved through a bunch of different techniques, I want to summarize everything by actually walking you guys through the intro riff that I played in this video, as it uses a bunch of these slide ideas that I've been talking about today. And so if you don't remember what that riff sounded like, it was something like this. So what did I do here? Well, to begin with, we started with that whole slide into an arpeggio technique. So what I did was I took this little line here and I used my finger to slide up into this note here, and then I built a chord shape around it. So we had something like this. So yeah, we slid into a chord shape, and then I did a little elaboration, like I talked about in the second segment of this video. So I was elaborating here, going from the 7th up to the 9th, and then we had another elaboration right at the end of the riff, elaborating on the 7th of this D minor 7, and also on the C note, which happens to be the key center for all of this music. So when I was doing that, I was thinking about it in a cadential sense. So yeah, once again, we slid into an arpeggio, we elaborated on the 7th of a chord, and then we did an elaboration right on the end of the little D minor 7. So yeah, hopefully this all makes sense and you guys have learned some new tricks, as these are definitely some of my favorite techniques, and hopefully they can become yours too. All right, folks, so there you have it. If you like this video, then please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as I put out a new video every single week. And if you want to support the channel, then please consider checking out my Patreon page, where for as little as $1 a month, you guys will have access to some bonus content like guitar tabs, lesson notes, chord diagrams, and other little goodies like that. And honestly, the Patreon page really helps me out, and it allows me to get some extra equipment to make these videos better. Finally, I also teach lessons through Skype. There's a link to my email address in the description below. So thank you all for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye.